Tonight, a judge dismisses a lawsuit from 2 Regina city councillors that would have forced the city to put homelessness money into the next proposed budget. Also, a terminal cancer patient waits for the government to approve his use of magic mushrooms before it's too late. Plus, the debate around who will be behind center next season continues for the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, December 14th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for watching. Deliberations on the City of Regina's next budget got underway this morning, and while the police force's budget was on the agenda, the focus is now squarely on what will not be up for discussion. Alexander Kwan has more.
Deliberating a budget is normally a straightforward process, but a Court of King's Bench decision has changed everything and established what will not be on this year's agenda. On Wednesday, Justice John Morrall dismissed a rare lawsuit that was filed by a sitting Regina councillor against the city manager. At the heart of the dispute was a motion to end homelessness throughout Regina. The city says that would require a 21% mill rate increase next year. That's about $500 in extra taxes for the average homeowner. City administration was asked to include those figures in its proposed budget, but they were missing when it was released to the public. That's when city administration said it was irresponsible to pass the costs on to residents at this time. That prompted Councillor Andrew Stevens to sue. His fellow councillor, Dan LeBlanc, is a lawyer and filed the lawsuit to try and force the city manager to include the homelessness motion in the budget. But this afternoon, the judge ruled the appropriate venue for their concerns is City Council, not a courtroom.
The decision is taken, and I would say is legally correct. It's just unfortunate that's what the law is with respect to city managers.
It's a decision being celebrated by Nikki Anderson's lawyer. He says it's clear she had the discretion to make the recommendation like she did, and that's why he's very satisfied with the results for his client, who has now been vindicated. The decision was released as council debated how much money will go to the Regina Police Service, but Dan LeBlanc says council needs to think about what is important in this city.
You don't get to spend all the money today on police and then tomorrow say, we have no money for people dying of overdoses. And so that's it. There's a double speak to it to any of my council colleagues who might rotely, I would say, rubber stamp the police budget today to later tomorrow say, well, now we're out of cash.
Council did vote to approve the police budget, but the court decision released today does not mean the end of this conversation. LeBlanc says he will try to get the motion on the budget as deliberations continue Thursday and Friday. It may not include the same numbers offered up by the city of Regina, but LeBlanc says this is a conversation worth having. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Meanwhile, the issue of housing is top of mind as advocates deal with the aftermath of a fire. It broke out in a tent encampment last night, and more than a dozen people have lost the few belongings they had. Daniela Ponticelli has more on what we know so far.
This was once a place for people without a home. Now couches, boots, and blankets are among the burned items being cleaned up. A fire destroyed the camp just off Halifax Street in Regina's core area Tuesday night. It was steps away from Carmichael Outreach, which serves people in need.
The area is frozen from the fire hoses wetting it, and none of their items are any good anymore. So this morning we're really making sure that those people are regaining some of those items they lost.
Benish says around 10 people lived at the camp, while around 30 would come and go throughout the day. All of them daily visitors to Carmichael's drop-in center.
We know them by name, we greet them, we welcome them in with open arms, and to lose them is a loss for our community. And thankfully that didn't happen.
Benish doesn't know where camp residents will live now. Carmichael Outreach continues to serve people as usual, but it does not provide overnight shelter. Meanwhile, officials are still looking into what caused the fire.
Our inspector was out there last night and found no evidence of a propane in any way, no propane tanks. So that may have been speculation from somebody around the area.
Hewitt says no one was at the camp when crews arrived. The fire department wants to speak with anyone who has information. Advocates, meanwhile, say it's a relief no one got hurt this time. But meaningful action from government is needed to avoid any more loss. Daniela Ponticelli, CBC News, Regina.
Patients with terminal illnesses and other conditions from all over the country were recently in Ottawa calling for better access to psilocybin. That's the active ingredient in what's commonly known as magic mushrooms. Patients say it helps them treat their end-of-life anxiety. But one Saskatoon cancer patient says trying to access the drug is adding to his stress. Yasmin Regina reports.
Thomas Hartle is making non-psychedelic mushroom pills. He says it helps him cope with his terminal cancer.
500 capsules last me about a month or so.
He once was able to legally use another type of mushroom, magic mushrooms, thanks to an exemption from then Health Minister Patty Hajdu. This is footage of Hartle about to go on his first psychedelic trip in 2020. He says it helped him face his anxieties about dying.
It's not that I don't have any emotion attached to it anymore, but it is no longer so intense that I can't deal with it.
Hartle's exemption allowed him to do as many sessions as he needed, but only for 1 year. He applied to renew it in October 2021. He's been waiting more than 400 days for an answer.
I've had a few emails back and forth with Health Canada, but the majority of my emails have been completely ignored.
Health Canada says it's committed to ensuring that all people who need end-of-life care receive the best possible supports available, but says further research on the drug is still needed. Hartle had accessed another government program, but there were issues. Each application was only good for one session, and he had to spend thousands of dollars traveling to see his doctor in British Columbia.
What on the surface seems like a way of granting access actually puts boundaries and borders in place.
Then Hartle's doctor was told she was submitting too many applications and must run a clinical trial.
We're struggling with this. We also have to find private donors to support a clinical trial.
An advocacy group says it shouldn't be up to the government to decide.
These are decisions about people's healthcare that are being made by government bureaucrats who are unknown.
The group recently led a rally in Ottawa calling on the health minister to grant more exemptions. Hartle says magic mushrooms changed his life. He hopes to use them again and see more changes before it's too late. Yasmin Regina, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Canada's health minister is presenting himself as an ally of the provincial health ministers. Jean-Yves Duclos is blaming the provincial premiers for the stalled efforts to reach a new healthcare funding deal.
The ball is in the premier's court. At the health minister's level, we all agree. We've got a great relationship. We agree on the diagnostic, we agree on the problems and the solutions to those problems. We were in total agreement in Vancouver in private. The problem is that the premiers don't want us to speak about those outcomes and those results. They want to maintain a futile fight on dollars.
Duclos says Ottawa is ready to increase investments in healthcare funding through the Canada Health Transfer. He says he's extremely concerned about the strained healthcare system, and he's waiting on the provinces to help erase the healthcare crisis. The premiers have been complaining that the federal share of healthcare funding has fallen from 35% to just 22%. They want Ottawa to restore its contribution. Roughriders head coach Craig Dickinson met with the media virtually today, a day after we were introduced to new offensive coordinator Kelly Jeffrey. One of the more pressing issues the new OC will have is to deal with the most important of any club. There's a glaring question mark at quarterback. Cody Fajardo's coming off the worst season of his career, one that saw him sacked 61 times. No other quarterback was even close. He was benched the last 2 games of the season, leading to speculation that his days as a Rider are over. Dickinson says he reached out to Fajardo last week, but made no promises.
And just told him that it's going to be, there's going to be some input by the offensive coordinator on what direction we go in free agency. And Cody knows he's going to be a free agency, and I think he knows he's going to test it out. And we told him, our offensive coordinator is going to have a big say in what direction we go at quarterback. I have an opinion. Jeremy's got an opinion, but our OC is going to get some say in that. So Cody's status is he's still under contract with us, and we'll go from there. But like I said, I reached out to him. I didn't want him to feel like we had forgotten about him, because we hadn't, but there just wasn't a lot to tell him at the time.
The Riders will be expected to make a play for Bo Levi Mitchell. Despite his rights being acquired by Hamilton, Mitchell's tracking toward free agency in February as well. Well, that's a sound you can get used to for the next couple days. We're officially in the start of that snow that Ethan was telling us to expect yesterday. Some areas are seeing more than others. This is how things looked in Regina today. Another dreary day. More clouds and snow will continue before we get to see the sunshine again, but sun is in the forecast. Ethan will have more details after the break. Welcome back. Trading carbon credits is often touted as an economical and practical way to reduce the release of greenhouse gases into the environment. In some jurisdictions, like BC, the practice has been around for about 20 years. Camille Vernet takes a look at how 2 communities in that province are looking to trade carbon credits through more sustainable forestry.
This forest is one of only a handful in BC producing carbon credits.
It fits very nicely with our Indigenous laws to look after the forests and do our part, our responsibility to taking care of it.
This community forest is a partnership between Lil'wat and Squamish nations and the municipality of Whistler. They sell carbon credits by reducing their tree harvest in half.
We generate between 10,000 to 12,000 tons of CO2 equivalent in offsets on an annual basis.
These carbon credits are then sold to individuals, companies, or government hoping to offset their emissions. For example, when booking a flight, you might be asked if you want to compensate for your carbon emissions by planting trees or by preventing a tree from being cut down. BC is leading the way when it comes to verifying projects to make sure they are truly emission reducing.
It was actually a very challenging process. In some ways, I do hope it gets easier, but I think if you sort of weaken those regulations and make it easier to access these types of programs, you might not have either as valuable an offset or you may not have a true offset.
The offsets program could be an opportunity for rural BC communities
to be funded to change the way things are happening. And right now, I don't think we are utilizing that to the extent that we should.
But there is a risk that comes with storing carbon in the forest.
Get a credit, for example, by not harvesting an area, and so it becomes older, and then it becomes more susceptible to a major fire. And we're seeing this happening in California.
Despite those challenges, the carbon market is still on the rise. On Vancouver Island, Mosaic, a forestry company, started its own carbon offset program in March.
Big Coast Forest Climate Initiative is a deferral of 40,000 hectares of mostly primary forests on the coast of British Columbia for at least the next 25 years.
So is this a solution to climate change?
It's not going to be a help. It just shows that we have work to do. It just ensures us, future for our children to be able to have the same opportunities as my ancestors had.
And he says this alternative approach to forestry can be a path toward reconciliation. Camille Vernet, Radio-Canada, Langford.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. 22 model clear-out is on now.
There was a lot of green in that story. Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. It's going to be a long time before we see anything even close to that green.
Yeah, doesn't that just make you jealous watching all those green trees out there? Yeah, probably May, June, July. Hopefully not that long till we see that, but certainly a lot of white on the ground and white on our watches and warnings map as well. Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, Yorkton still under that special weather statement as we continue to see that snow move in. And as you can see, it encompasses pretty much the entire area that is under that statement at this time. Southwestern or southeastern Saskatchewan, that is getting hit the hardest, and we're seeing some heavier bands starting to move in through the evening tonight. But showed you this last night. I want to back out and just show you how large this system is, because we have severe weather ongoing still throughout the southeastern United States. In fact, a pretty significant tornado hitting New Orleans this afternoon, the second time that area has been hit by a tornado this year. And other than that, severe thunderstorms through much of the eastern United States. And now that system going to be moving eastward, and we have weather warnings in place in the GTA and much of southern Ontario as it continues to work its way eastward. For us, we will continue to see the snow fall overnight tonight, specifically along eastern portions of the province, even stretching pretty far north, as you can see there. And then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, we should start to see the snow finally dissipate. We'll still have cloud cover in eastern sections, but finally some clearing for south and central on Friday before another system starts to make its way in. This one's coming from the north, though. It's not a Colorado low and will bring likely less amounts of snow as we head into the weekend. Now, in terms of amounts, just in these next 24 hours or so here until tomorrow afternoon, probably another 10 centimeters or so through much of the advisory area. Maybe not even that much. Regina, this might still be a little bit high for us, but as you can see, west of there, barely anything falling overnight tonight. Wind gusts, though, going to be picking up, especially further south you go, and even into tomorrow afternoon, gusts close to 50, maybe 60 kilometers an hour in extreme southeastern Saskatchewan. Friday overnight will be pretty gusty before those winds start to die down as we head through the day on Friday and into Saturday. And with that wind and a little bit of snowfall, likely going to see those visibilities drop through the night, sometimes to just a few kilometers, maybe even less than a kilometer, a few hundred meters in some spots. After that, our attention turns to how cold it's going to get. We have this pretty large high-pressure area to the east, which is blocking things in place. But once that moves, that trough going to drop down, and that could drop as far south as Texas, bringing some unseasonably cold conditions as we head close to Christmas before it finally starts to subside. You'll see that cool down here in our extended forecast in Regina, where after we get out of the snow, we're still going to be seeing some flurries over the next few days, but daytime highs getting close to 30 or minus 30. And in Saskatoon, you will see a similar cool down again. Not expecting as much snow over these next 24 hours, but overnight lows getting down to minus 30, likely going to be wind chills dropping down into the minus 30s. We are far from normal for this time of year, Sam.
Is there anything normal in weather in this province anymore?
Doesn't feel like it anymore.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Tis the season for glitter. You can find it anywhere from shiny gift wrapping paper to sparkly Christmas cards, but most of the time glitter, it's made of plastic and it's not biodegradable. Researchers at the University of Saskatchewan have found a green alternative. The new glitter is made out of cellulose nanoparticles. It's a substance found in plant cell walls. No word, though, on whether it cleans up easier than the regular stuff. We'll be back after the break. As Canadians turn toward holiday festivities, Parliament Hill is shutting down for the season as well. But it's not all calm and bright for the minority Liberal government. The stability they've enjoyed may be headed for trouble. Rafi Boudjikanian explains.
The Liberals bringing some holiday cheer to the last sitting of the year, while their political opponents warn they've got little to sing about. The Bloc Québécois says it could see plenty of paths to the polls next year, even if it doesn't want an election.
I'm certain that immigration will be a very, very important issue next year. And with immigration always comes the issue of the French language. I believe this will be a quite bumpy year, and at the end of it, there might be some bruises on this government.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
While the Conservative leader spent his speech to caucus still trying to get acquainted with Canadians.
And remember, our job is always to stand on the side of the common people, their paychecks, their savings, their homes, their country. My parents taught me that it didn't matter where I came from, it mattered where I was going.
But it's not the official opposition the Liberals are likely to be watching most closely. The NDP has been propping up Justin Trudeau's minority government with a confidence and supply agreement since last March. It's now threatening to pull that support over the Liberals refusing so far to increase healthcare spending to provinces and territories without strings attached, and Trudeau refusing so far to meet collectively with Canada's premiers about this.
We have a crisis in our healthcare system that is impacting children. Children are suffering. And the Prime Minister says that because of an impasse with the premiers, that he can't do anything.
The Prime Minister, though, declined to say whether he thinks his deal with the NDP is a gift that will keep on giving.
The reality is we're ambitious parties that are progressive in our values and trying to get things done for Canadians. Canadians are facing a tough time. We've been facing a tough year. We work together on delivering dental benefits and rental supports that are going out today. We continue to work on meaningful things together.
Nothing would be automatically triggered should the deal evaporate, but the Liberals would lose some stability they've had in their minority governing position, meaning a return to finding consensus with different parties on a case-by-case basis. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather.
And we're going to continue to see snow in Regina, Sam. By the time we get to tomorrow morning, not much of a change, -12. Some winds blowing those remaining flurries around. And by the afternoon, warming up slightly, but likely some continuing flurries before we get cloudy with an end to the snow by the afternoon. Saskatoon, clearer conditions, a little bit cooler, -14 tomorrow morning. Winds a little bit lighter, and then clearing out still as we head through the afternoon, but dropping a little bit in terms of our temperature. Now, if you're in Regina, you just might get a visit from Santa tonight. The Coca-Cola Santa truck is around town in Uplands, Churchill Downs, City View, and Eastview. He's already out there, and the temperature going to be not bad. And Sam, just enough snow to give it that nice Christmas vibe.
Perfect. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And this fills right in with that theme before we leave you tonight. It's the end of an era for a popular holiday light display in Saskatoon this year. It has been a labor of love for Scott Lambie and his wife. The idea came up when he and his daughter watched YouTube videos of light displays. She suggested he give it a go, and they did. The home on Clinskill Drive in the Nutana Park neighborhood started with 25,000 lights in 2008 and grew to a display of 85,000 this year.
We're always busy. It's not busy at 5:30, but by the time you get to 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, it gets pretty busy, like 20 cars. When it's warm, people get out of their cars and stand on our sidewalk.
Lambie says they actually considered not putting up lights last year, but thought about the people who would miss them. So this is the formal announcement. It is the last year. He says he'll miss the lights. And people have already started messaging him, offering to buy parts of his display. If you want to experience the lights, they run at 2706 Clinskill Drive each night from 5:30 to 10:30 p.m. And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask or /Saskatoon or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed will be back with more local news at 11. Ethan will have weather. Thanks for watching and have a great night.